Welcome to Hood Politics. In this episode, I will be discussing Freddie Fuiava, also known as Smokey from Linwood Vadio Young Crowd. The facts of the case are as follows. Linwood is a city located just east of Compton, and just like Compton, a large portion of Linwood is plagued by gangs, with some gangs even having turf that extends into Linwood, such as Mob Piru and Cross Atlantic Piru, which has members that claim Linwood and members that claim Compton. Linwood is home to gangs like the Linwood Neighborhood Crips, Linwood Vadio Rude Boys, the Palm Gangster Crips, and numerous others, but one of the most notorious gangs is Linwood Vadio Young Crowd, and in May of 1995, a member of Young Crowd made national news. On Friday, May 12, 1995, around 8 p.m., two sheriff's deputies, Robert Lyons and Stephen Blair, were patrolling Young Crowd territory as part of a gang saturation effort. Blair was behind the wheel as the patrol car turned off Duncan Avenue onto Walnut Avenue. The deputies then noticed two men standing on the sidewalk and assumed they were gang members by how they were dressed. When the two men noticed the deputies, they began walking towards Ham Park, which was located at the end of Walnut Street. The shorter man of the two then threw an object over a nearby gate, which prompted deputies to stop them. Blair told Lyons to go after the shorter guy and he would go after the taller one. According to Lyons, shortly after he exited the patrol car, he heard a fury of gunshots, and when he looked towards the other side of the car, he saw Blair pulling himself out of the car. Both the deputies then crouched down in a defensive position and drew their weapons. Lyons observed the taller man sprinting towards the park. A few seconds later, Lyons began moving towards the rear of the patrol car when he heard another series of gunshots, but this time they were in slower succession and sounded similar to the standard issued 9mm pistols that deputies carried. He heard 8 shots. He believed Blair could have been shooting at a truck that was parked next to the patrol car. Lyons then called out to Blair, but received no response. When he finally made his way to the rear of the vehicle, Lyons saw Blair lying face down on the pavement. He was unresponsive and bleeding from his mouth. His service weapon had been fired and was in his right hand. Blair was transported to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. He had been hit in the neck and shoulder with a .44 caliber weapon. One of the bullets severed his aorta, which would have caused blood flow to his organs to stop immediately, but a person suffering from said wound would still be able to engage in purposeful activity, such as firing a weapon for as long as 6 seconds after the wound was inflicted. Blair was raised in the nearby city of Pico Rivera and served as a sheriff's explorer before ultimately joining the department. He was a husband and father of 3 sons. Blair was 31 years old at the time of his death and was a 9-year veteran of the sheriff's department. Detectives arrived at the scene and began their investigation. 5 9mm shell casings ejected from Blair's firearm were found on the ground near the driver's side of the vehicle. A .45 caliber pistol was recovered from a nearby yard, and 2 possible bullet impact marks were discovered on a nearby house. An off-duty Long Beach police officer was in Ham Park at the time of the shooting and heard both sets of gunshots and reported hearing the second set of shots passing over his head. A woman named Renelle Brooks was standing in the yard on Walnut Avenue when she heard several gunshots. She then saw a person running towards the park. Seconds later, she heard another round of gunshots and felt bullets pass by her head. After speaking to witnesses and receiving numerous tips, investigators discovered that a Young Crowd member named Ernesto Avila was the shorter man that was seen throwing the gun into the yard, and a man named Freddie Fuiava was the taller man that was observed running from the scene towards the park. Freddie was a well-respected member of Young Crowd and went by the nickname Smokey. A couple of weeks after the murder, in late May, Freddie was arrested while driving away from a home in Fontana, California. Fontana is a city roughly an hour east of Linwood. 2 deputies stopped Freddie while another pair of deputies stopped traffic. Initially, he complied with deputies' orders to exit the vehicle and lie on the ground, but after one of the deputies cuffed one of his wrists, he stood up and began struggling. One of the deputies was holding an M16 rifle, and Freddie grabbed the barrel of the gun and attempted to take it. The deputies who were controlling traffic rushed in, and Freddie was subdued and handcuffed while telling deputies to kill him. Freddie Fuiava was charged with murder for the death of Deputy Stephen Blair and the attempted murder of Deputy Robert Lyons, as well as gun charges. He later pled not guilty. While in jail, Freddie had a phone call with his mother and sister. The call was recorded. The conversation was in Samoan, but was later translated into English. During the call, Freddie was displeased with his mother because he had told his attorney that he was asleep at home the entire night of the shooting, but his mother contradicted that claim when she spoke to officers. Freddie, his mother, and sister then spoke about standing by his alibi and also spoke about telling other people to stand by his alibi as well. Freddie Freddie told his sister, "If I get caught in this case, I'm not spending my whole life here in jail. I'm going to the chair." He went on to blame what happened on Ernesto's decision to throw his gun and stated that if they just kept walking, the police wouldn't have come to them. But Ernesto got scared, panicked, and threw his gun. Freddie said that he was in possession of 2 guns, and if they found them, it would be over. During the trial, prosecutors sought to establish that Freddie killed Deputy Blair in order to escape arrest. Freddie had 2 prior convictions for assault with a firearm, one in 1989 and the other in 1992. He had served prison terms for both of these convictions and was on parole when the incident occurred. The terms of Freddie's parole prohibited him from possessing firearms and being in contact with any young crowd members, and according to prosecutors, he was in violation of those terms that night. Prosecutors presented 4 shooting incidents involving Freddie. A man named Manuel Ramirez testified that on the night of September 9th, 1984, he was driving in Linwood with several family members and a woman named Christina in his car. As the vehicle drove past a dark field, Manuel heard what he thought were firecrackers, but someone else in the car said they were gunshots, and then Christina said she had been hit. Christina was taken to the hospital with a wound to her right jaw area. A deputy testified that he interviewed Freddie about the incident. Freddie admitted to the shooting and said he believed there were rival gang members in the car. Freddie also admitted to shooting at 2 other cars that he believed contained rival gang members. One just minutes before he shot at Manuel's car, and another a few weeks earlier. A deputy named Matt Brady testified that in March of 1992, he responded to a report of a shooting. After arriving at the scene, he was met by a woman whose scalp was grazed by a bullet. According to Brady, the woman's companion identified Freddie as the shooter during a lineup conducted on the street. Renell Brooks and a woman named Sarah Frosto testified on behalf of the prosecution. Initially, Renell denied knowing anything about the shooting, but she later decided to cooperate. Both women knew Freddie was a member of Young Crowd and went by the nickname Smokey. Freddie stayed at Renell's house in Fontana in the days after the shooting. Renell and Sarah testified that they overheard and participated in conversations regarding the shooting. Renell heard Freddie say that he and Ernesto were walking down Walnut Avenue when the patrol car pulled up and one of the deputies said, "Let me see those hands, guys." He was in possession of 2 guns and told Ernesto to be cool, but Ernesto threw his gun into a yard. According to Renell, Freddie said that all he could think of at that point was going to jail for the rest of his life because he already had 2 strikes. Renell said that Freddie told her if the police raided the house looking for him, she should tell him that he's in the back house with the gun, seemingly implying that he wanted them to kill him in order to avoid going back to prison. Renell told the court that she initially told investigators that she knew nothing about the shooting because she was afraid of retaliation by Young Crowd members. Renell explained that she had moved before the trial began and the sheriff's department paid for a portion of her relocation expenses. Sarah stated that Freddie told her if the cops came looking for him, he would go into the restroom with the gun and won't be taken alive. Sarah said she feared coming forward due to possible retaliation by Young Crowd members. She also moved before the trial, and the sheriff's department also paid for a portion of her relocation expenses. Both women testified that they only cooperated because they believed investigators already knew that Freddie was the shooter. Prosecutors presented an English translation of Freddie's conversation with his mother and sister. They emphasized how the group was planning an alibi for Freddie. The defense never denied that Freddie committed the shooting, but stated that it was done in self-defense. Ernesto testified on behalf of the defense. He stated that on the night of the shooting, he was standing in front of his house on Walnut Avenue talking to his daughter Melissa and her friend Charlotte when Freddie walked by, headed in the direction of the park. Ernesto also planned to go to the park that evening to hang out with other Young Crowd members and told Freddie that he would see him in a few minutes. After sending his daughter inside, Ernesto began walking towards the park when he heard the sound of squeaking car brakes coming from nearby Duncan Avenue. He turned around and saw a patrol car coming towards him. Ernesto admitted to carrying the .45 caliber pistol, which was in violation of his parole, so he threw the gun into a nearby yard. The patrol car pulled over to the curb, so Ernesto put his hands at his sides and asked, "What's up?" Then Deputy Blair exited the vehicle with his gun drawn. Ernesto recognized Blair and had interactions with him in the past. Ernesto believed Blair was going to shoot him, so he ran back towards his home. As he was running, he heard someone yell, "Hey," and then heard an exchange of gunfire that sounded as if it was coming from 2 different weapons. Ernesto testified that he didn't see who shot first, and he acknowledged initially lying to investigators by saying he was in the house taking a shower when the shooting occurred. A witness named Douglas Bristol testified that on the evening of the shooting, he was in the yard of a house on Walnut Avenue. He stated that he saw the patrol car stop at the curb in front of Ernesto. He saw the driver exit the vehicle with the gun in his hand and began shooting at Ernesto. Freddie was near a tree with his hands empty and yelled "Hey" or "Whoa," and the deputy then turned towards Freddie and fired several more shots in his direction. The shots passed over Douglas's head. He testified hearing an exchange of gunfire from seemingly 2 different weapons as he ran away. Freddie testified that on the evening of the shooting, he retrieved 2 handguns guns from under Ernesto's house. They were a 44 caliber pistol and a 9mm pistol. He then began walking to another young crowd member's home, which was located at the end of Walnut Avenue, near the park. A few moments later, he saw flashing lights and a patrol car approach Ernesto. He took a few more steps and heard a gunshot. Freddie stated that he turned around and saw a deputy pointing his gun at Ernesto. He yelled, "Hey man," to the deputy, who then turned toward him and opened fire in his direction. Freddie said the first bullet passed close by his head, which caused him to fall back into a fence. As the deputy continued firing, he took out the 44 caliber pistol and fired all 5 rounds at Blair. Freddie testified that after the shooting, he made his way to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, flagged down someone that he knew who was driving by, and got a ride to the nearby city of Downey, where he spent the night at a friend's house. However, during cross-examination, Freddie admitted that he lied regarding where he went after the shooting, and that he actually spent the night at a house located near the park at the end of Walnut Avenue. He stated that he gave the 44 to a friend so it could be disposed of, and that he sold the 9mm and worked for some dealers in order to make some money so he could travel to Mexico. Freddie also testified about his arrest and stated that he only struggled with deputies because he believed they were planning to kill him. He went on to say that he heard one of the deputies say, "Damn, if there weren't so many witnesses," and it was at that point that he yelled, "Go ahead, kill me." Freddie denied telling anyone at Rennell's house that he shot at Blair because he didn't want to go back to prison. He said at the time of the shooting, he wasn't really paying attention to the 3 strikes law and didn't know whether his prior convictions for assault with the firearm would count as a strike. Freddie did acknowledge that he knew he would be going back to jail if deputies found the guns he was carrying. He went on to say that he only had 1 strike at the time of the trial. Freddie said that he didn't go to the police about the shooting because he didn't think they would believe him. He also didn't think that self-defense could constitute a legal defense even if the deputy was the aggressor. Freddie told the court about his previous convictions. He stated that the 1989 shooting occurred because a man was messing around with his girlfriend, and one night he decided to shoot at him a few times. He went on to say that he was drunk and didn't know what he was doing. All of the bullets missed the victim. Freddie denied committing the 1992 shooting, but he was still identified as the shooter, so he pled guilty because he would receive less time than if he actually took the case to trial and was found guilty. Freddie also testified that he confessed to another shooting when he was 13 years old, but stated he only did it to take the charge for an older member of the gang who had actually committed the crime. Freddie and Ernesto told the court about the tension between Young Crowd and the sheriff's department, in particular a group of deputies who called themselves the Linwood Vikings. There are numerous deputy gangs operating within the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, such as the Banditos in the East Los Angeles Station, the Executioners in the Compton Station, the 3000 Boys at Man Central Jail, and over a dozen others. These deputy gangs have their own tattoos, hand signs, and initiation processes, which can reportedly range from falsifying paperwork to murdering a civilian. Deputy Blair was a member of the Linwood Vikings. Ernesto testified that the Vikings were known to shoot at people, beat up people, and throw up gang signs, just like any other gang. He went on to say that on one occasion, Blair told him, "Fuck Young Crowd, this is the Vikings." He told the court that Blair and other Vikings members hit him with their flashlights on multiple occasions. A sheriff's deputy testified that the Vikings weren't a gang, but were merely a tight-knit group of deputies. The deputy went on to say that Blair had received a number of commendations from the sheriff's department, including one for arresting a murder suspect without using deadly force, although the use of such force would have been justified. 5 days before Blair's murder, deputies shot a Young Crowd member named Jose Naives. Jose had a pickup truck parked in front of his house, which had the passenger door painted to resemble a sheriff's department patrol vehicle. The area around the white door was painted black, and the word sheriff and a 6-pointed star had been painted on the door. Also on the door were the phrases "fuck the sheriffs" and "the crowd's gonna get you." The door and the area around it had numerous holes, which resembled bullet holes. Deputies had been shown pictures of the truck during a briefing and were told that Jose's home was raided and that multiple firearms, including an AK and a shotgun, were recovered. Jose testified that said weapons were never recovered from his home, and the holes in the truck's door were made using a pickaxe, not by shooting it. Deputy Blair's ex-wife Rebecca was called as a witness by the defense. She was asked if Blair had a very volatile temper. She responded that excluding a couple of incidents, he did not. However, in the declaration filed during their divorce proceedings, Rebecca stated that Blair did in fact have a very volatile temper and broke furniture when he was upset and had physically attacked her. The declaration also stated that the last incident resulted in police being called to their house. Rebecca told the court that the declaration was prepared by her divorce attorney, and she actually initiated the attack after she confronted Blair about an extramarital affair he was having. She said Blair grabbed her in an attempt to calm her down, and they both fell onto and broke a coffee table table during the scuffle. She stated that it was Blair that called the police and no one went to jail that night. Deputy Blair's parents, wife, ex-wife, and his 3 young sons told the court about Blair's strong devotion to his career and how much they missed him. Some of Blair's fellow deputies, including Lyons, told the court that Deputy Blair helped make them better deputies and helped them on a personal level as a friend. Freddie's mother, one of his brothers, 3 of his sisters, a sister-in-law, and 3 of his friends testified that he was loving, caring, helpful, and protective toward his family and friends. He was affectionately known as Uncle Freddie to the children in the neighborhood. Ultimately, Freddie Fuiava was found guilty with the murder of Deputy Stephen Blair and the attempted murder of Deputy Robert Lyons, as well as gun charges. Freddie Fuiava was sentenced to death. At the time of this video, Freddie Fuiava sits on death row in San Quentin State Prison. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe.